Okay, so this is about as raw as this can get. Hello, my name is Nandini. Welcome to Figuring It Out Alive. And I have just started a book club on this book all about love by Bell Hooks. I found out that Bell Hooks likes her name not capitalized. So I'm gonna have to change my posters. So this is a book club that I would love for you to join. So check out the description or the comments or something like that if you would like to be part of reading this alongside me, because what we're going to do is we're going to go over certain sections that we highlighted and talk about what came to mind, pretty much. This is my first time reading this book properly. I am part of another book club where they read this book, and after about maybe the first chapter or so, I had to quit reading it many years ago because it became too overwhelming for me. Love is a very difficult topic. I think that's something that even Bell Hooks sort of talks about. So in today's session, we will be covering the preface and the introduction. So our next session was going to be on maybe the first and second chapter. So if you'd like to get involved, please do. I promised that I would include some journaling questions as well. So I'll write those down in the description and I'm also going to talk about them. But the memories that sort of come to my mind, depending on how personal those stories are, I may upload like a non-edited version of this video, which I'll post on maybe a Patreon or something, because those who are genuinely committed to knowing all this, they can access that. Another thing I want to mention is I'm doing these recordings live. However, if more people want to get involved in the book club and they don't want their stories or their opinions to be recorded, I'm all about consent. So there's nothing to worry about. I will not record what you have to say unless you give me explicit permission both before and after speaking, that it's cool for me to put this up online. All right, then, let's begin. All About Love, New Visions by Bell Hooks. I think this was written in the late 90s originally, right? This particular version says that it was published in 2000, and it comes under love, feminist ethics. It's a nonfiction psychology book. Okay. Let's get into it. What was interesting to me when I found out like why Bell Hooks doesn't like her name or doesn't capitalize the B and the H of her name. The things I read said that she wanted the contents and the message of what she was saying to be like the highlight, the spotlight, as opposed to her name. And I'm just like, but why? Like, why not take up that space? Especially after reading the introduction, but we'll come to that in a moment. Let's start with the preface. Have I mentioned that I have a really, really bad head cold? So my body's been resisting me starting this, but I was like, no, I shall start no matter what. Okay, so the preface was really short, just over 2 pages. And in it, she talks about the fact that she was her family's first daughter. Yeah, I was my father's first daughter. At the moment of my birth, I was looked upon with loving kindness, cherished, and made to feel wanted on this earth and in my home. To this day, I cannot remember when that feeling of being loved left me. I just know that one day I was no longer precious. And I think this is a feeling that is really interesting to think about, because perhaps in adult relationships, people think about like growing apart with time. How does that happen? How do people lose their spark or the magic in a relationship or whatever it is? But at what point as children do we stop feeling loved, if indeed we have, number one, ever felt loved by our parents, and number two, we stopped feeling love? by our parents. So I think that's a question to sort of think about, meditate upon, and perhaps journal. Like, what were the moments, I would say, before the age of 9 or 10, where you felt like, or you remember something that made you feel like, whoa, my family doesn't love me the way they used to love me, or anything like that. I have two memories in mind. The first one is probably one of my earliest memories because this is well before my brother was born, and my brother was born when I was. So in this case, it was just, something that reinforced that my mother didn't want to touch me or didn't want to love me, and she couldn't meet my need of wanting to be held. The other memory that comes up is one that I distinctly remember my mother saying that, oh, we only had your brother because you'd become like too heavy to carry, right? You were too fat to hold, which is ironic because my previous memory was about never being held, or not never being held, but like her not wanting to hold me at all. So what's interesting is like how I would associate that being loved or being wanted was dependent on my size, so there's so much like it was just fat shaming to be told that, like we wanted to have another kid because you became too fat. And I also heard several times something along the lines of, oh, you were already spoiled, like you were already ruined, so we wanted to have another kid. Like you were already ruined. Now, I don't know if they speak in that sort of tense or whether they say we ruined you, but I'm pretty sure they didn't take personal responsibility for that. And when I say they, once again, these words came from my mother. So my mother was like, yeah, like Nandini's ruined. So let's have another kid. Let's try again. So yeah, it's pretty uncomfortable, isn't it, to sit and think about when did we feel loved as children? And did that ever stop? And if it stopped, what made us think that that stopped? What are the memories that come up? That's something to journal about. And how does that make you feel right now? What are the things that are coming up right now as you remember those things? So in relation to these feelings, Bell Hooks talks about having a longing for that sense of belonging and love that she has chased ever since she lost it in her childhood. And she pretty much suggests that that's what we all sort of long for, is to feel that love as we continue to grow in life and go ahead in life. Okay, so now let's move on to the introduction. I would love to read this with you all. So once again, I welcome you all to join this book club. So in the introduction, in my version of the book, this comes up on page XVIII, which is 18, but not 18. Like, because it's the introduction, it's written in Roman numerals. Near the bottom, Hooks writes, young people are cynical about love. Ultimately, cynicism is the great mask of the disappointed and the betrayed heart. Yes, it is. And she may be talking about love, but even in terms of like politics or the environment or whatever it is, whenever somebody talks about something that's good, the people who respond with cynicism, what is making them so cynical? Like, why don't they have that hope, that desire to pursue something that is good? Like, I had a conversation with someone about a week or so ago about solar panels, and they were like, just talking about solar panels, and then I came in and I was like, yeah, like there's so many places in Himachal that I went to, ordinary houses had solar panels, and then they were really cynical and they were like, well, if you think about the cost of it and the maintenance, it amounts to about the same because it costs a lot to install and stuff. And I was just like, but the environmental benefit though. And they were like, well, yeah, that's only one point. So I'm just like, why? Oh, cynicism. Cynicism is the great mask of the disappointed and betrayed heart. Can good things exist? And what is the price to pay? On the next page, XIX 19. Yet young listeners remain reluctant to embrace the idea of love as a transformative force. To them, love is for the naive, the weak, the hopelessly romantic. And then Hooks goes on to quote Elizabeth Wurtzel in a book called Bitch in Praise of Difficult Women. None of us are getting better at loving. We are getting more scared of it. We were not given good skills to begin with, and the choices we make have tended only to reinforce our sense that it is hopeless and useless. But once again, I'm not even thinking about love as I'm reading this. I'm thinking about like anything that we say will create reform that is much, much, much needed in society. There are so many people who are like, well, it's not going to do any good. And then they don't do it. So obviously, not even attempting things ends up never improving anything. But yeah, I really like this because it's like we're not getting better at loving. We don't even know what love is, and we're getting more and more scared of it. You know, it's like a fantasy. The more that we are exposed to the warfare, the inequality within our own families, let alone society as a whole. It's crazy. Okay, I'm gonna move on to XX, page 20. We got 2 stars on this page. So I was surprised to find that the vast majority of the revered books, once used as reference works, and even those popular as self-help books, have been written by men. So in the introduction, Bell Hooks talks a lot about the fact that even though love is seen as something that women care more about, the people who have written about love tend to be men. And oh, there's a lot of good stuff around this, so I'm gonna continue like reading little bits and parts. Hooks does a great job of emphasizing what love means, perhaps, in the context of gender as well. Let's see. So she goes on to write, all my life I have thought of love as primarily a topic women contemplate with greater intensity and vigor than anybody else on the planet. And then men theorize about love, but women are more often love's practitioners. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Most men feel that they receive love and therefore know what it feels like to be loved. Women often feel we are in a constant state of yearning, wanting love, but not receiving it. That's so interesting. Men write about the love they've received. They feel like they are loved enough, so they know to write about it. They think that they're the authorities because they receive it. Whereas for women, it's like, oh, I mean, from what I'm getting through this, it's just sort of like women are constantly chasing it, seeking it, wanting it, and never able to receive it in such a satisfactory manner that they may feel like they could talk about it or write about it. Perhaps that's true. Let's see. And then on page XXIII, which is 23, everything in mass media, particularly movies and magazines, tell us about love. Mostly, they tell us that everyone wants love, but that we remain totally confused about the practice of love in everyday life. In popular culture, love is always the stuff of fantasy. This makes me think about how all like fairy tales tend to end with and they lived happily ever after, right? They got married and they lived happily ever after. And it's like, isn't that where the story actually begins? Like how? How did they live Is it even possible to live with another human being happily ever after, like forever and ever after, happily with like no hiccups, no ups and downs? I don't think so. Or maybe yes, who knows? Um, oh, one of my favorite lines. Male fantasy is seen as something that can create reality, whereas female fantasy is regarded as pure escape. This is so good. This is so, so, so good. Wow. Male fantasy is seen as something that can create reality, whereas female fantasy is regarded as pure escape. Wow. Apparently, women are both willing and eager to hear what men have to say about love. Female sexist thinking may lead a woman to feel she already knows what another woman will say. Such a reader may feel that she has more to gain by reading what men have to say. This is so unfortunate, right? Like, I'm uploading this on YouTube, and like, I'm not really in the space of talking about love. I mean, what I mean to say by that is that I haven't watched videos on this topic before because I just do stuff on my channel, right? Mine is called Figuring It Out Alive. So I just, whatever takes my fancy and whatever um, is occupying my mind, that's what I talk about. And so I'm really, really dedicated to honing in on my life's purpose right now. And I've figured out, whoa, I wouldn't say figured out, but I realized that getting to know more about love was an absolutely necessary step for me, which is why I'm reading this book and which is why I've created this book club and I'm going to talk about this book because like the lack of love and the lack of feeling worthy of love and just feeling worthy full stop has held not just me back, but has held everyone I know back. Like if we trace to the roots of everything that limits us, the root seed is always a lack of worthiness and a lack of feeling worthy of love. So I want to really deep dive into this and heal it 100% for me, well, as much as it can be healed, so that I can talk about it with my clients and with my friends and with my students, in a way where I know what to do and I know past just my own experience. And so getting back to what I was referring to, I am led to believe that a lot of YouTubers out there, especially male YouTubers who cater to women, often talk about what a man wants from a woman or how to make men love them. I think, once again, I just think that this is true. I haven't done research and I'm not going to bother to do the research because I just, okay, maybe I'll do a little bit of research. I'll just type it in and see whether I see men having those channels or whether I see women having those channels. It's pretty heteronormative. I must acknowledge that too. I wonder, I genuinely wonder, and if you happen to be someone who can speak on this personally, please do type in a comment. You can also reach out to me on Instagram and send me a direct message over there. I think I also have a Facebook page and stuff. And of course, there's the Empowered Transformation Tribe, and the link will be below, so you can like directly message me through WhatsApp as well. Please let me know if you happen to be a person who is female and attracted to other females, women. Um, I'm guessing you would not care at all to hear about a man's opinion on love. This is my guess. But do let me know, okay? Because, we are also dealing with the wounds of losing love from parents, right? Okay. And the next one I have underlined, circled, and starred. Okay, so this is a triple one. Let's see. Um, So few writers, male or female, talk about the impact of patriarchy, the way in which male domination of women and children stands in the way of love, and is specifically highlighted, underlined, circled, and starred standing in the way of love. Patriarchy stands in the way of love. I think any sort of dominating structure stands in the way of love. Oh, I really hope this is talked more about in the book. I'm certain that it would be. The next page, XXV, which is 25. Men always testify that they have received love. They speak from this position. It gives what they say authority. Women, more often than not, speak from a position of lack, of not having received the love we long for. I already talked about this earlier, so this is just emphasizing that. And it also makes it more difficult. Like, this is why I'm saying I'm so interested in this topic, and this has now become the theme of not just my channel, but my life, is to get to know love in all its depths and complexities and fully. Like, I want to feel so loved, and I want to love without any fear, without any feeling of vulnerability. And so what it's making me think of is that if a person lacks something, how can they talk about it except to express that I don't have it? And I don't even know what this it is, because quite often there's a lot of gaslighting that occurs as well. Gaslighting is basically when somebody denies your experience of something. So many times, including like a few weeks ago, I saw this woman, a young woman, probably 18 to 20, not more than 21 or not more than 22. And she was one of those people who dresses up really, like fantastically near amusement parks and stuff for people to come and take photos with her, dressed as a character. And excuse me, if I can find this video, I'll link it in the description as well. But in it, she made this really short video, a short, basically, a YouTube shorts on why she has decided to not let men take photos with her. And she had literal video evidence of men touching her, pulling her body up close, swatting her hand away if she tried to, like, adjust herself in order to touch her more. And it's like, and at the end of that video, she says, even though they haven't really done anything, I don't really want that to happen. And like the comments were like, yo, the fact that they made you feel uncomfortable, that's it. That's it. That's me. That means that they've done something wrong. You know, that's it. Things don't have to be any more or any more any more tangible, any more real than your individual experience of what you think is enough or is not enough. Okay, I'm gonna carry on. Okay, on page XXVI, which is 26, I've underlined, in actuality, all the concrete proof indicates that while the perspectives of men and women often differ, I often mess up the pronunciation of differ and defer, but differ. These differences are learned characteristics, not innate or natural traits. And I wrote next to that, gender is a social construct. Just so you know, I don't identify as a woman. I am non-binary. On the other hand, I don't hoist that flag around everywhere I go because I, you know, I'm around a lot of micro cultures and a lot of women who don't really need this to be said to them. And when they do need this to be said to them, I've decided that I'm not gonna expend that kind of energy. So since you're listening to this, I do want to point that out. The reason why I'm okay with she and her pronouns is because society treats me as a woman. And also, I've come to realize that when I play up my femininity by putting on makeup and earrings and dressing like this, and now I have longer hair, I'm definitely seen as more acceptable. And that means that I receive fewer questions from people, and that piece is worth it. It's worth it to me. The other thing I noticed many years ago is whenever I would apply makeup and stuff, people would genuinely give me the time to speak. Like in a group setting, if there were a whole bunch of people there and I didn't have makeup on and I was just dressed slouchily, if I tried to say something, I would be talked over, and people wouldn't give me any time to speak. On the other hand, if I dressed a certain way and applied makeup to look presentable slash more feminine, people would actually be quiet as I would speak. So that experiment sort of sealed the deal on all this for me. Anyway, gender is a social construct. Gender is a social construct. I'm going to repeat this. I'm going to repeat the lines. While the perspectives of men and women often differ, these differences are learned characteristics, not innate or natural traits. Okay, she's done the bunny ears herself. Okay, so now I've got huge chunks of texts. Though considered the established authorities on the subject, only a few men talk freely, telling the world what they think about love. In everyday life, males and females alike are relatively silent about love. Our silence shields us from uncertainty. We want to know love. We are simply afraid the desire to know too much about love will lead us closer and closer to the abyss of lovelessness. I think oh my gosh, I'm just realizing that this is what made me stop reading this book all those years ago when I had the support of a book club to read this book with. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't face it. Like it was just bringing up too much and I was crying and I was just like, I don't want to. I don't want to get into it like this. It's too, it would be like scrubbing the wounds clean, and then it's like they're bleeding again. Ah. But now I'm in a totally different place. I don't think that reading about love or talking about love is gonna get me closer and closer to the abyss of lovelessness. Um, I see a lot more lovelessness, or actually not lovelessness, but inequality, which I find to be so abhorrent, like so disgusting in my day-to-day life where I'm staying. Nevertheless, love is the answer. Love, respect, treating each other as human beings, just human beings. Okay, carrying on. It is far easier to talk about loss than it is to talk about love. It is easier to articulate the pain of love's absence than to describe its presence and meaning in our lives. This triggers a memory of me. I approached this Ayurvedic doctor who I did not like at all. And he gave me 7 questions to answer. I call them the 7 deadly questions. And at the time, I was suffering from insomnia, eczema, depression, anxiety. What else? A whole bunch of colds and like permanently enlarged tonsils. Hey, got a head cold now as well. So he asked me a lot of questions, and for each question, it was like there was a question and then it would, and why? So part of the questions was also, do you hate your mother? Why? And then the next question was, do you love your mother? So as I was writing them down, he paused. And so I wrote, okay, do you love your mother? And why? And he was like, no, just do you love your mother? Because with love, there is no why, he said. And I was like, wait a second, what? Why should there be no why when there's love? Why should there be a why if you're using the word hate? We've used the word hate, like hate is taught to be such a strong word. Don't use the word hate. And in the Western society, people are also afraid of using the word love. I love you. That comes at the end of a story. Like in the West, I love you is said after meeting the person, going on dates with the person, sleeping with the person, maybe even meeting the family. And then it's like, oh, but I love you. It's just like, what? So tell me what you think. Do you think when you love someone, are you able to give reasons why you love that person? Yes or no? And do you feel like if you're able to give reasons, does that cheapen the love? Is love just supposed to be this emotional state that is unwavering, that is um, reasonless, that cannot be added to, that cannot be subtracted from? I'm very curious to know what you think about that. I'm going to journal on that too, actually. So yeah, it's so interesting, it's far easier to talk about loss than it is to talk about love. It is easier to articulate the pain of love's absence than to describe its presence and meaning in our lives. Another memory this conjures up is when I talk about my father's death, people automatically understand that that was difficult for me. But the reason why that was difficult for me was because before he died, he was very, very loving and very, very kind to me. That's why the death was difficult. Because months before he died, he was the best parent he ever was to me. So, I mean, that's why his death was so painful for me. Okay, let me wipe these tears before I continue. Okay, XXVIII. This is 28 now. Wow. My sinuses are totally blocked, if you cannot tell. I'm sure you can by the sound of my voice. All right. There is no. Oh, this is interesting. So I think this is just after Bell Hooks talks about everyone wants to know more about love, even in the realm of politics, religions, in our families, romantic lives. We see little indication that love informs decisions or strengthens our understanding of community or keeps us together. So this is a bleak picture, uh, which in no way alters our nature of longing for it. So then, bell hooks. This is near the end of the introduction, the last two pages. So despite people's cynicism, there's a huge desire to know love and to engage in love, which is like obviously shown by all the love songs and stuff. And she goes on to write, our nation is equally driven by sexual obsession. There is no aspect of sexuality that is not studied, talked about, or demonstrated. How-to classes exist for every dimension of sexuality. Even I really don't want my video to not reach people, but it's the word that starts with M, ends with Asian. Yet schools for love do not exist. Everyone assumes that we will know how to love instinctively. This is such a bad thing because there are a lot of people out there, especially parents, who just cannot love kids. They don't know how to love kids. They don't know how to be a parent. Everyone assumes that we will know how to love instinctively, even though there are so many instructions on sexuality. Interesting. Despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary, about love being something we know instinctively, we still accept that family is the primary school for love. Those of us who do not learn how to love among family are expected to experience love in romantic relationships. However, this love often eludes us, and we spend a lifetime undoing the damage caused by cruelty, neglect, and all manner of lovelessness experienced in our families of origin and in relationships where we simply did not know what to do. Only love can heal the wounds of the past. On the next page, contemplating the practice of love in everyday life, thinking about how we love and what is needed for ours to become a culture where love's sacred presence can be felt everywhere. I wrote this meditation. As the ti as the title All About Love New Visions indicates, we want to live in a culture where love can flourish. We yearn to end the lovelessness that is so pervasive in our society. This book tells us how to return to love. Interesting. Yeah. Solid introduction. Solid. Interesting how men are the people who write about love, and yet women are the ones who are expected to do the loving. And women's ideas are so limited because women, I mean, I'm just summarizing what I got from this, because women feel like they haven't been loved well enough, or they don't really know what love is because they're constantly just feeling dissatisfied by what they're being told is love, but may not feel like love. And it's so bad that I know women and I know people, women, who have really twisted things around in terms of love, and not just women. I've also known my peers who happen to be females, and they've talked about like their father beating them as an act of love. And I have a feeling this is something that will be talked about because I remember the last time I tried to read this book, there was something about that. And because I felt so let's say relieved knowing that I wasn't the only one who thought that was crazy, that how can someone beating you be an act of love? That is twisted and that is not correct in my opinion. I hope that I'm correct in thinking that's part of this book as well. So I'm looking forward to reading that part. Once again, thank you very much. Join me as we talk about this book. You don't have to, right? These videos are going to be there for you. And I'm thinking about getting a Patreon or something so that my more private life stories and stuff can go on there because, I want everything to be there out in the open, but at the same time, a person doesn't always value something, um, unless they pay for it. There's that aspect, and then there's the whole aspect of safety as well, because um, unfortunately in my life, I've come across people who can seem really, really, really interested in me and what I do. And so they may like binge watch a whole bunch of videos and get to know like the more vulnerable sides of me. And that is pretty much all I've put up on this channel is like the most vulnerable moments that I've managed to like film and stuff of my life. So that can be quite risky because people are shady, not in the cool Slim Shady way, although Slim Shady's nasty, nasty as well. I guess what I mean to say is just so that there's one layer of barrier when it comes to like the more personal stories. I'll probably include that in Patreon. So when all that's set up, it'll be in the description, and I would love for you to join me over there as well. But other than that, I really appreciate your support. I hope that you are as interested in getting to know more about love as I am, even if you can't admit it openly or publicly. Love is it. Love is everything. Like everything for me can be traced back to the lack of love. Why don't I eat better? Because I don't love myself. Why don't I complete the courses that I've paid a huge amount of money for? Because I don't love myself enough. I'm getting to the core of the reasons, like keep asking yourself why? And you're like, oh my gosh, is it because I don't love myself? Is it because I don't think I'm capable? Okay, if I'm not capable, what's wrong with that? Oh, well, if I'm not capable, then I'm gonna lose people's respect. Well, what's wrong with that? Then people won't love me. Then I won't get, my friends' love and respect. I won't be loved. That's how I got to this. Anyway, I am looking forward to reading the next two chapters. And until then, thank you very much. Take care. And I will see you in my next video. My name is Nandini. Did I even introduce myself? My name is Nandini Flurry, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.